Did you know that physicists aren't the only ones who care about gravity? Lactose is in your dairy products, but did you know it's also in some of your beers? And we try beers that have sugar, spice, and everything nice. I'm Nikoli Williams, and this is Don't Worry, Beer Happy. Sugar, spice, and everything nice. So I'm joined here today with who I'd say is my partner in crime when I go to these beer fests all over the country. Say hello, everybody, to Robby Brachman.
Hello, it is I, the partner in crime. We go to beer fests all over the country.
So explain what that shirt is for everybody.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, that's the little Untapped logo. But then the back, which I'll describe first, is a mountain range in Colorado. This is from when we went to the Great American Beer Fest in 2019.
And you see exactly this picture in Denver. There's no editing done. That is a complete photograph from a great
Oh,
camera.
I just barely missed the little box.
Hello, everybody from St. Louis. We appreciate you watching. Yeah, so today I have one beer that Robby also has, and it's called Everything Nice. It is a strong blonde ale at 9%, I think. So it's a pretty strong beer. Here's what the bottle looks like. As you can see, it is a limited release from Brewery Almagang up in New York. Actually, I'm gonna turn my hat off here, it's distracting me. But yeah, I mean, any thoughts prior to tasting it? I haven't tasted this at all beforehand. I've kept it in the fridge, even though I've wanted to try it. I don't know. What do you think? Are you excited for it? Do you think it's gonna be super spicy? What do you think?
It smells really good. Um, and a kind of a festive look on the bottle too. So I'm definitely excited to try it, but I don't think it's going to be one of those ones I have for a night. It would be like that first beer right after dinner to start the night.
Yeah, I actually haven't smelled it till now, so I just took off the bottle cap. And if you couldn't tell, we have a theme of Christmas going on, or the holidays, I guess, as you can tell from my hat, my tree in the back, and then my Baby Yoda sweatshirt. But yeah, I mean, that's why I picked this beer because it's a limited release winter slash holiday special ale. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour mine. Robby, I don't know if you have a glass to pour yours in, but I'm
Oh, I
pouring.
got a glass to pour it in.
Oh, that's the Amagang glass. Nice. So he's going full out for Amagang. I don't have an Amagang glass, but I am using a snifter. So this is kind of what you would see at any of your bars if you're getting a high ABV beer, which this is
How would you
9%.
rate this head?
That's not good. I will say that. Yeah, so up on the screen you can kind of see some of the stats. I'm gonna pour it for you just so you can see it. Yeah, this is actually pretty foamy, isn't it? This is hard to pour without getting a huge head, I'll tell you. I can see that my glass is not beer clean. I do see some bubbles sticking to the side, but it is what it is. I can't really do anything about that. Worst pour of the show easily. What Robbie's? Yeah, it's definitely it sets a low bar for any future people who are on the show. But we don't judge here. Okay, it's you drink the beer you like to drink the way you like to drink it. Um, yeah, I mean, I think I got the color pretty right. I did the SRM chart without um, looking at the beer. So low to mid 20s, I think, is kind of accurate depending on the light. I mean, you can see through it somewhat, but if you get kind of down in the picture, you get a kind of more red kind of look, copperish, reddish. I don't know.
Definitely copper. I'm not sure I can see through it at all. Very reflexive too.
I mean, I can see my hand. I know that. Like when I shine it in the light, I can see my
Oh,
hand
I'm
through
I'm
there.
trying to see that wall in front of me.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know that you can see it like that, but you can sort of see through it. I mean, just off the nose, I do get a lot of those kind of holiday spices. I think it's if you go to your kitchen and you just open up all the spices, you kind of waft in the smells. You might smell something sort of like this. I almost get like a maple syrup kind of scent too.
Yeah, maple syrup a little bit, and there's something that's like almost as spicy as cinnamon, but not quite. Maybe it's nutmeg. Is that what nutmeg smells like?
I honestly look. I can't tell you one or the other kind of spices. I'm not a spice expert.
I'm gonna cheat here. Cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, cloves, and white pepper.
Oh, okay. I wonder where we're getting the maple syrup from because like it is actually really strong to me. I don't know.
Maybe you're just smelling the next beer already.
Well, that one's not open, so I'm gonna top this one off. All right. Before we take a sip, I will say the foam that you saw Robbie pour, and the fact that mine has a little bit more than you would want, it is actually around 25% beer. So I would say definitely don't scoop it out if you do have the foam. I mean, unless you just don't want it, but it is 25% beer, so it's kind of wasteful, I guess. I'm gonna drink mine. I'll say that.
You think of a reason this is foaming up more than the beers were last week?
Um, well, I mean, the style could be part of it, but it also could be the glassware. I know my glass is not beer clean, so that can kind of trigger more head to form. Um, but yeah, maybe because they're fuller bodied beers, is what I guess. And we can get into what body is. We'll talk about that a little bit whenever we go through some of the things like original gravity, final gravity, the ABV stuff. But I'm going to take a sip. So hold on. It has a very almost like I feel like I'm sitting in front of like a fire right now, like a fireplace. I'm sipping on some sort of I don't know Christmas drink. I don't really get a super strong alcohol flavor in it, right? For being 9%, it's not in your face at all, but it is kind of sharp on the spices.
Yeah, the alcohol definitely tastes more like I guess you could say 7% double to me, as opposed to this 9% thing. And also what you're saying with that fire, kind of used to malty beers, that roasting process almost getting towards coffee flavor, but this is definitely a bit more of that ashy wood.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell there's some sort of wood. It kind of reminds me of whiskeys in a way, with like the kind of woody flavors that you have in there.
Today's Monday, not Wednesday, so I'm not going to talk about whiskey. And to answer Dan's question, I think it's important to remember when you were pouring your beers and got the head, you were coached by Nikolai through it. I didn't get that same kind of practice, so there's some excuses to be
That's
had
true.
there.
It's also a little bit harder to pour, I think, into these kind of glasses than your normal American pint glasses or your no-nick pint glasses. Um, but in general, the foam is gonna fall at the same ish kind of rate, I think. You can make it fall with oils, and I mean this is kind of gross, so you don't necessarily have to do this. But like if you took the oils from your forehead, which I'm not gonna do, and then you put your finger
Okay.
onto the foam, it can help to
Oh, I have no more foam.
it can help to make it reduce its level in your glass. Any kind of oils kind of break the I don't even know what it's called, to be honest. The tension, I guess. I think there's some sort of like a surface tension on top, and the oils can help break it down. The don't worry, beer happy stance on the oil thing is if you want to do it, do it. But if you don't, then don't. I mean, I don't want to do it because I think it's kind of odd, but it doesn't have to be your skin oils either, I guess. But It's not gonna hurt you, probably. I mean, I'm not a doctor, so don't quote me on it. But you know,
You can support all of your entrepreneurial friends by using their essential oils to help do this.
essential oils. That's that's gonna be the Don't Worry Beer Happy essential oils. We're gonna sell it to reduce foam head for mist spores.
Oh, yeah, that sounds like not an MLM at all, and definitely a viable product.
Well, I don't know that it'd be an MLM. It would just be a scamaz of a product. So
Would you say that you are the CEO of Don't Worry, Beer Happy?
I'm the host.
Or are you the CEO?
I mean, it's not a company, but sure. If it were to be a company, then I would be the CEO. So one thing that I kind of want to talk about with this, and I know your next beer is a higher ABV than this beer, mine's not, but with it being 9%, I wanted to kind of talk about how alcohol gets into beer, and we talked about this a little bit last week. So if you're recurring, then you might remember some of that conversation. But Robbie, do you remember any of that? Because I know you were in chat last week.
Yeah, my memory is about that of a goldfish. Ted Lasso would love to coach me, but my teachers hated me.
In light of that, I'm going to ask you, Robbie, do you remember anything from last week? I know you're in chat.
Yeah, I have the memory of a goldfish, so Ted Lasso would love me, but my teachers hated me.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. So I'll go ahead and explain a little bit then. The way that alcohol gets into the beer is whenever it's going through fermentation, the yeast produces it as a byproduct when it eats the sugars. Now, a lot of these sugars are able to be eaten from so the grains that you use produce the sugars when you boil them and make it into the wort. And then the yeast that you put in there is able to eat a lot of those sugars, sometimes most of them, but other times not as much. And it produces carbon dioxide and alcohol. And the way that it's measured is by gravity. So, I know you're probably thinking like, gravity, you pick something up, you drop it, it falls, whatever. But gravity is a measure of how much sugar is still in the liquid, as opposed to, I guess, like the density and stuff like that. So, like, water's gravity is 1.0000, I think.
So are you saying that yeast poop is a topic to be taken seriously?
It is if you want to have alcohol and carbon dioxide in your beer without having to some other way put it in there. Yeah.
Then if I wanted to do it without using yeast, there's other ways to increase that gravity, right?
Well, you increase the gravity by having more sugar. So the yeast isn't going to create more gravity. So there's a thing called original gravity, which is what it is to begin with. And then there's a thing called final gravity, which is what it is once the yeast is done doing its thing. At any given time, when you measure the gravity, that's going to be called your specific gravity. And gravity has a formula that can determine the ABV. So if you take your original gravity and subtract your final gravity, or I guess your specific gravity at any given point, and then you divide that by, I want to say it's 0.0075. Let me just make 100%. Yeah, 0.0075. Then that decimal will be the percentage of your ABV. So for this beer specifically, we're going to have our original gravity minus our final gravity over 0.0075 equals 0.09 because it's 9%. So I know you might not like math. I don't know if you do or not, but brewing is a very mathy thing if you want to get things correct. A lot of times the gravity is measured by the brewers, but it's not 100% accurate at the time because alcohol weighs less than water, so it's not going to be your real ABV. So to get the real one, you're going to have to do like a laboratory sort of test and see how much alcohol is actually in there per 100 grams or something like that. So it can get you really close, especially for home brewing. It's fine, but if you're going to go to mass market and everything, you're going to have a specific, correct number that you can say for sure this is how much is in there.
So you're saying when I go to these local breweries, some of those micros and nanos, that when they put something as 10%, 10.5, 9.5, who knows? They've done their original gravity minus current gravity divided by 0.075, and they've come up with an approximate number, but they're too lazy to send it to LabCorp to get the real number.
I don't know. I mean, and they might even be able to do it with some equipment. I'm not 100% sure about the commercial way of doing it. But one thing I did want to correct is it's 0.0075, not 0.075. And maybe they do, maybe they don't. I mean, I can't say. You'd have to ask them. Maybe next time you go, you can ask and report back, see what they tell you. I'd actually be interested in knowing whether or not they do that kind of analysis. I would imagine it's required, but I'm not sure.
Well, how else would they get the ABV? I was just wondering, because sometimes they're not quite precise. And then we also have like Waldo's. We love Waldo's. Every year the ABV changes by a few tenths of a percent.
Right. Yeah. Well, I would say Lagunitas specifically is probably testing it how like in a laboratory setting. I mean, in any beer or wort, you can take that and determine the amount of alcohol in it. Just take 100 grams of it, see how much of that 100 grams is alcohol. Boom, there's your percentage.
Then the other side of ABV is ABW, right? Can you go over that? I used to know what it was, but I know
Yes.
it's more European than American and, America.
Well, it's actually just kind of weird. I don't even know that it's even European anymore. ABV is generally what you're going to see on anything, but it's alcohol by volume versus alcohol by weight. If you use alcohol by volume, you can actually get the number of ounces that are in your beer that are alcohol. So, for example, if you have a beer that's 5% ABV and it's 12 ounces, if you multiply that together, you can find that you'll have 0.6 ounces of alcohol, right? And if you want to do the same calculation, you can do that with like a standard shot, right? 1.5 ounces of whatever at 40% is going to equal 0.6 ounces of alcohol. So your standard drink is going to be, right? So your standard drink is going to be 0.6 ounces of alcohol, and ABV allows you to easily do that. Now, ABW is alcohol by weight. I know that there are some states that just have it as a requirement or they at least have in the past for historical reasons. That's just the way it was done. I don't know about European laws so much, and maybe they do have it a little bit more there, but there's a conversion. So I think if you do your ABV times, what is it? 0.7, no, divided by 0.795. So if you do your ABV divided by 0.795, that'll give you your ABW. So it's an easy conversion, but honestly, I don't understand why you would use ABW. Seems kind of silly. I mean, maybe it's the same thing as the U.S. uses its own system rather than the metric system.
The imperial colonialism system.
Right. So we use that system, and Europeans may think, oh well, that's kind of silly, but whatever. Yeah, that's my feeling on ABW. It's kind of silly to use, but whatever.
Yeah, I see what Dan is saying here in our little chat thing. And if you come to Hey Nikolai on Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific, you too can chat and ask some live questions. But where are these specific decibel numbers coming from?
That's a good question. I'm actually not 100% sure. I just know that is the equation for it. I mean, I don't do a whole lot of brewing. I mean, I have brewed my own stuff at home before, but yeah, it's 0.795. So ABV divided by 0.795, which if we want to do that for our current beers, I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick on the calculator. So we do 9 divided by 0.795. So 11.32% alcohol by weight. But then on the other hand, when you talk about the 0.0075, that is the equation for converting your sugar content by gravity to ABV. Now you can also, instead of using gravity, which will look like 1.050 or some number like that, you can convert it to Plato. And I mean, there's a chart for degrees Plato. And I think in wine it's called like degrees Plex or some Brix. Yeah, degrees Brix maybe, Brix. Yeah. Um, but there's a chart that shows you, oh, if it's this gravity, then it's this Plato. Like for example, Plato of 1 is equivalent to a specific gravity of 1.004. Or a Plato of 40 is equivalent to a specific gravity of 1.179. So, I'd actually be kind of interested in knowing what this one was, but you could get the same ABV a lot of different ways, depending on where it started and where it finished. It just matters how much that range is, and that's what gives you your ABV. But obviously, if you have more left in there, you'll have more sugars, which do contribute to the mouthfeel. We cannot hear you, Robbie. You are muted.
Great, I'm on push to talk. Just put a link in your chat that apparently there's an alcohol stack exchange, and it has people discussing, if not exactly this topic, very, very similar, about figuring out ABV. And apparently what you're talking about is a linear approximation, but that's not quite 100% accurate, as we know. You
Right.
said earlier it's an approximation, but I just
Yeah,
thought people might be interested. We get a little Dennis in here. He loves his
I don't actually see the link.
math.
It got starred out, so if you wanted to send it to me, I could post it. But yeah, it got it got denied by chat.
Doesn't show me as getting denied. Okay, so we talked a little about ABV, ABW. I was looking at where you ranked the IBU, so I was glancing at the bottle earlier, and I couldn't find the IBU,
Yeah.
but I did see something interesting that, for the people here who know me, which is a lot of you in chat, I don't actually refrigerate my beers the vast majority of the time. And people think I'm crazy because I wind up drinking room temperature or warm beer.
Right.
But this one says to serve 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So I think temperature is one of those interesting things where a lot of times you're like, my Bud Light straight out of the freezer, let's pound them. But this is an example of something where maybe you do want to take it out a little bit before you drink it, let it get up to the recommended temp.
That's a good point. I did take mine out about 20 minutes before we came onto the show, and it was specifically for that reason. And now I didn't know that it said that on here, but I did want it to be more room temperature than the refrigerator. So, and I think it does open up a lot of these spice flavors. I think if you were to drink this, if we did a test and had one that was almost at the freezing point, you wouldn't be able to taste all these spices. I think as it sits on your tongue, it I don't know, it really allows you to taste all of the spice that you mentioned earlier, rather than just, oh, this is a blonde ale. So what do you think of
That try to was going so well until the end.
what do you think of the mouthfeel, Robbie? So the mouthfeel, we're going to talk about 3 different portions of it, and I know you hear about mouthfeel all the time, and a lot of the time it's like, what is this? What is a mouthfeel? It's just something people say, but I don't really know how to describe it, right? That's the feeling I get from a lot of people, is who knows what mouthfeel is? No real clue, right? But 3 of the key points are going to be how much carbonation there is. So I think in this one, let me just try it again. I don't find that there's much carbonation. I don't get that carbonic sting, Like if you drink a highly carbonated beverage, you kind of feel the carbonation, hit your tongue and evaporate off or whatever it does. I don't really get that at all. I would say this is not highly carbonated. It's pretty normal, I would say, but I don't really factor that into this. It doesn't really come across to me in any particular way. It doesn't seem creamy. It doesn't seem super high in carbonation either.
It's definitely not creamy, but I get that sting. I also pretty much, unless it's creamy, almost always get the sting. So maybe I'm just sensitive to it or something, or maybe it's because I just poured that second glass. There's, any number of reasons, but I definitely do feel that. It doesn't leave me with the cotton mouth feeling that you sometimes get, which I hate getting. So
Mhm.
I'm happy about that one. And then we were discussing earlier how it feels like you're in front of a fire. And I think as that rolls off of your tongue into your cheeks, it kind of spreads that feeling out. And that's part of why it feels that way is the way those spices spread is similar to that feeling of smoke going across your body.
Right, but it's not like a Rausch beer smoke, right? Like a Rausch beer smoke is something that has smoked malts or whatever to make it taste like the campfire or like a smoked meat. This isn't that, but it does make me feel so. I don't know. It's almost like a comfort. Like you drink it and you almost feel like you're sitting there in some comfortable place and you have the fire going.
Yeah, no, it's definitely we've been talking about fire, and I guess we should be clear. I think you mentioned earlier a fireplace. It's not like you're out camping in the woods and then that wind blows and you can't breathe anymore and you smell like smoke for 4 weeks. It's more like you're sitting with your family enjoying some hot cocoa
Right.
after a long Christmas, and there's just a fireplace crackling, and there's that warmth that envelops everything as everyone just sits down nice and lethargic.
Yeah, I mean, I think that describes it pretty perfectly of the sense that you get whenever you taste it. Um, I know we kind of hit on the mouthfeel fully, you know, going through all that, but I did want to point out the other two items other than the carbonation. The second item is going to be the fullness of it. So that's going to be your viscosity level. Does it feel sort of syrupy? Does it feel super thin? That kind of um, analysis on the beer, I guess. That's the second key component to mouthfeel. I actually feel like this is kind of on the heavier side. I think it is pretty full. I don't know. What do you think about it?
It could be a complete lack of me understanding what words and phrases mean because, we did beer school for over a year together, and I'm still when people say earthy, what the fuck does earthy mean? And I don't know, I was thinking more it's kind of thin, and that's how I get that cozy fire spread is by that thinness comforting me as it moves, as opposed to something sitting heavily and kind of dragging me down with it. Maybe that was a poor description.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I look at it, like it doesn't strike me as something that I would call thin just because I mean maybe medium would be better like if we could do it in light, medium or full because I don't find it to be light like your 5-star natty lights, right? I don't find it to be that thin, but I also don't find it to be as thick as some of your other beers. Maybe like the Imperial Stout that I'm going to taste next, or your barrel aged stout, right?
Early.
Um, yeah, it's probably not as thick as those, but I do get sort of a decently heavy mouthfeel. It doesn't feel like it's sliding down as easy as some of those lighter beers, but yeah, it's definitely not syrupy, right? It's not so hard to drink that it doesn't move in your mouth, right?
No, it's no not your father's 10%er.
Not your father's 10%er.
I'm not sure
uh,
if I've even tried that one.
I've
I
never had
don't
that.
remember.
I've never had that. Um,
But yeah, when I think of things that are very syrupy, it's easy to think of something like not your father's because it's alcoholic soda. It has to be syrupy.
and I just looked at your whisper. Let me. I put the link that you were trying to put in chat. If anyone's curious. Yeah,
Which
I
beer
mean,
received the lowest? That's a question we can answer in a minute. I was actually going to ask Nick what he wanted to think about putting this on Untapped after this
mhm.
conversation.
Yep. Let me find it on Untapped first. Okay. I mean, I really like this. I think it's not all year round, right? I would not want to drink this all the time. I like it for its novelty during the winter and holiday season, I think. But I do think it is a nice blonde. It has a good flavor. I do like the spices. I'm gonna go. Actually, do you want me to say my rating first, or do you want me to tell you what you
Yeah,
think?
sure.
Okay.
For it.
My rating, I think, is going to be a 4.0.
Okay. Yeah, I see where you're coming from. And as we've talked about in the past, I find that a lot of single Belgians, Pilsners, lagers, they feel kind of flavorless to me. And this, while being of a similar style, the blonde kind of branches out a little bit more into the IBUs. You can see it's not all the way at 0, it's more in the 20 to 30 range.
Mm-hmm.
And according to your bar chart, anyway. And
I
I
think I
kind
got
of
that off their
agree.
website too, by the way. So I don't. I'm pretty sure it's right, but if it's not, my apologies.
I I agree in saying I prefer it in the winter. I think it's that nutmeggy and other spices flavoring.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you asked me 5 years ago if I would get hammered on it, the answer would have been absolutely yes. I got hammered on way stranger things like that rosemary growler that one time. Uh, so, I definitely would have gotten drunk off it. I enjoy it. I think it reaches a solid 1.75.
That's your rating, 1.75.
Well, more or less, maybe more.
Wow.
I was thinking more like a 4.25.
Hold on. Hold on. So you said 1.75 or 4.25?
I was making a joke about praising it a bunch and then calling it bad.
All right, Robbie. Yeah, that went straight over my head. I
It's okay. It's not the first one today. No,
okay.
I think the first one today that went ignored probably by everybody was saying that yeast poop is serious business because it's in relation to gravity and puns.
This guy. What are we gonna do with Robbie? Yeah, I mean, I think the reason I didn't get it is that I was completely shocked. Like you said 1.75, and my mind's like, there's no shot that it's that low. Like at the very minimum, I think it's really great for the style that it is. But even if you don't like the beer, I think the quality of it can be tasted. It shows through that it is a good beer. I think.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things we learned together, along with enjoying sours, is that you're the ability to appreciate a beer even though you don't like it as being a quality beer. And I think bringing up those sours is emblematic how we agreed every sour we tried tasted like vomit until Kelly was like, "Hey, you're drinking this flight because you wanted to try something new, and I priced it $10 below where it should be." And then we love sours,
Which
and
says, by the way, find you a bartender who knows you and gets to like you because you get to try a bunch of stuff. It's a great experience.
Kelly will forever be my favorite bartender. Um,
Agreed.
that just the ability to have my palate changed in such a way it went from tasting like vomit to tasting like a real beer to me and something that I even enjoyed. Now, when I have other beers that I don't like, I'm able to fight through that discomfort and find okay, this is what you're going for. It's not for me, but do I think this would work for somebody else?
Right. Yeah, and speaking of those sours, I think it. Our first sour was a big dog in the sour game, and
Oh, yes, that was straight vinegar.
yeah, I mean it's one of those beers where you're like, how is this a thing, right? There are a lot of other sours that are less sour and they're more kind of fruity, which I think a lot of people in America do like sours, but they like the fruited sours. They don't really like the Duchess Red or whatever else. But the fruited sours, they kind of give you that fruity flavor that you might not get in normal beer, and it's usually pretty light, so you're not overwhelmed by it. It's not a triple IPA that's sitting at 11.4%. It's not an imperial stout or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, I think if you want to be on the episode, I know I have a couple people in mind for the sours episode, but if you want to be on that episode, let me know because I would like to have one full of sours.
I would love to do sours, and I've seen that Duchess Bourgogne in
Yeah.
stores, and it is expensive. And seeing it was like, oh, I tried a really nice beer. Oh, that was really wasted on me.
Yeah, I would like to try it again. I have not tasted it since I don't know, fall of 2015, maybe.
Yeah, that was probably, I think it was junior year, right? Spring
Okay.
of 2016.
Well, spring of
Yeah,
20. Well, it couldn't have been spring of 2016.
why not?
It couldn't. I don't know.
I was 21, you were 21, we were doing beer school. It was either then or fall of 2016.
Well, hold on. I guess my timeline. I don't know when it was. I could look it up
Junior
actually.
year was 2016,
It's
2015 into 2016.
I see. Look, now this is in the exact reason why last episode I said I can't remember if I've had that. I don't remember when I had that, but that's why we use Untapped. And if you're not using Untapped, I don't know why you're not, especially if you're into beer. But
Um,
that's beside the
I'm going to
point.
go back and answer Dan's question. Since he knows I've rated, among other beers, Natty Light is a 5.0.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He wanted to know the lowest. So down here, I got Bud Light and Budweiser at 0.25, Coors Light at a half, PBR at 0.75, Budweiser Select 0.75, Bud Light Platinum 1.0. I don't really count those as real beers. It's kind of snobby, but we're here to be a little snobby.
Well.
At least I am. You drink your beer the way you want to drink it. I will drink those to get very drunk. They're not my drink of choice. So the first one here that's like not just a mass produced macro beer is the Irish Stout from Morgan Street Brewery. I think they
Oh,
were the ones who did
happy hour.
um
Yes.
what's it called? Why am I Happy
Happy
Hour?
hour. Yeah.
Yes. How did I forget that is the name? And I gave that a 0.75.
I don't think I rated that one that low, but yeah, I will say that I was not the biggest fan of Morgan Street. And I did
Yeah, it was nice
confirm.
to get free beer. It was a little sad it was Morgan Street.
Right. I did confirm though. April 2016 was when we tasted Duchess. So long
Oh,
time
I was
ago.
just looking that up. I gave it a 2.
You gave Duchess a 2. Wow. I gave it a 3. I said interesting vinegar taste in there. Um,
I
out
was
of
probably afraid to rate it lower.
out of all my friends, yeah, I see that you rated it a 2. I have another friend who rated it twice. One at a 3.5, and he said it was. This was at beer school also, and he said it was an odd Flanders Red. And then he tried it again in September. No, hold on. Excuse me. The beer school one was actually rated lower. So he tried it in 2014 and he rated it at a 4.5. And then when he tried it in 2016, he rated it at 3.5. So I guess his flavors were not good in that taste, or he just really stopped liking the Flanders Red style.
Yeah, I did mention in there specifically I did not like the style. I thought it was very balsamic.
Yeah.
That's me saying words not knowing what they mean.
I mean, that's fine. I think describing it in a way that you understand and that means something to you is kind of what Untapped is all about, because you're not doing it for other people necessarily. I mean, I do it because I like to remember everything that I've had. I like to know my thoughts on it, even if I don't type something every time. But I'm not putting stuff in there necessarily for other people, unless my friends just want to look and see what I thought of it because they trust my opinion.
Whoa, so I'm looking through my Untapped
Hmm.
because Dan had me curious about what I've actually rated as a 5 here, and I can't say that these are all my favorites. favorite beers, but they are the ones I give a 5, not the 4.75 or the 4.5,
Right.
which, all depends on my mood. So I'm going to throw a list at you and you tell me what you think.
Okay.
Immortal IPA from Elysian.
I don't know. You should have it if I've had it on there.
The Toronto Double IPA from Ballast Point. Natty Ice, Natty Light. Optimum from Sierra Nevada.
Optimum's pretty decent.
Waldo's Natty Daddy. Stone Ruin 10 Triple IPA. The Stone Tangerine IPA
I thought we lost
from
you there.
2016.
You did cut
The
out, but
Waldo's from 27. Oh, yeah, I just cut it out a few times. I'll start over. Okay. Lightning Ground. Agree or disagree with a 5.0 rating. Immortal from Elysian.
disagree.
Uh, Dorado Double from Ballast Point.
Disagree.
Natty Ice.
Definitely disagree.
Natty Light.
Yeah, disagree.
Optimum from Sierra Nevada.
I mean, we're getting closer, but still disagree.
Waldo's.
That's a definite agree. If you don't rate Waldo's a five,
That's a 2016, by the way.
well, all Waldo's are fives for me. It's
Natty Daddy.
I mean, that's closer than Natty Light, but I would not rate it a 5.
Stone Ruin 10 from 2016.
I don't think I rated that a 5 if I had it.
I wish I could find that again. That was August 2016, like August 27th, so right at the start.
Well,
of
didn't they
year.
come out with, like, when we were in Boston, didn't he say they were coming out with something similar to that? And I told you about it over the summer.
Yeah, I may have forgotten.
I don't know, but I could look at my calendar.
The Stone Tangerine IPA from Halloween of 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Waldo's 2017.
That's
the
definitely
Darkville Imperial Stout from Barnshed Brewing. I think that's a local to me.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had
that. Barrel aged from Abandoned Hard Cider. Apparently, I liked the cider enough to give it a 5.
I probably would not give it a 5.
I don't remember. I don't remember a lot of these. The Waldo's from 2019. Abyss from Guanella Pass Brewing Company, also sour.
Yeah, I don't think I've had that.
Pleasure to Meet You from Black Shirt.
Never had that, I don't think.
The Three Philosophers Double Chocolate.
I don't know if I've had double chocolate.
2021. And then do you remember Bolero Snort from BF?
I don't think so. Did I have it?
Yeah, they were the ones that had like the Fruity Pebbles beer and the funnel cake.
What did I rate it?
I don't know. You didn't have this specific one, I don't think. But this is one of their sours, the Volcanic Muau.
Oh. Yeah, I don't recall it. Or that brewery, to be completely honest with you.
Cool brewery. If you ever visit Dennis, he lives near them.
I've visited Dennis 2 or 3 times. He's never taken me.
Okay, visit Rose.
I've never visited Rose, but I'm pretty sure she is not in New Jersey. So.
And as a retort to Dan, I think when we first had Waldo's, it was delicious, but every year it's fallen off a tiny bit.
Well, I mean,
at this point, the 5.0 is partly because of the legacy.
Yeah, it's the legacy, but not Legacy 77. And I will say that
R.I.P. Chad's dad.
The reason that it still continues to get a 5 from me is for a few reasons. One, it's a very dank beer, right? It's just an interesting flavor that you really don't find in too many beers. I mean, some beers try to imitate it, but they don't really get that essence. Two, it is an abnormally high ABV that tastes like it's half of what it is. Three, you can get some double IPAs that do taste very metallic-like, and not even in a bad way, but they just are super in your face with the bitterness. I think that Waldo's has a high bitterness, but you don't taste it like it's so bitter I can't drink this. It just has a very good balance of everything, and yeah, part of it is that it has a legacy, and we did hype it up to begin with, and so it's hard to live up every single year to that super fresh, super new hype that we gave it. But I mean, I think it deserves a 5, even still. So
it is good enough that every year I buy a $70+ case. And also, correct me if I'm wrong, back when we were in school, we could get it at Cicero's. It was a 12-ounce snifter for $5.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yep. I mean, Cicero's is a great place. I do miss the Cicero's. That's why you're going to bring it back, though, at some point. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything else?
Yeah, Rose, Rose, Bolero Snort is in the Meadowlands. It's very close to, I think it's MetLife, where the Jets and Giants play.
Rose, try posting that again, and see if it works. Because I don't know if it's my no. Okay, so it's legitimately Twitch chat that's doing it. No, you can see it. I can't see.
Oh, you're showing star, star, star.
If you message it to me, then I'll post it in chat. But yeah, I mean it's made that way so that people don't post obscene links in chat. Or if any mods are on, I don't know if any mods are in chat, but if mods are in chat, then if you could message them and ask for it and post it, that'd be good too. I don't know, any other last words on Everything Nice? I mean, was it everything nice? I mean, I think it, I don't know how much sugar it had, but it did have a lot of spice, and its name is Everything Nice, so.
I don't see any ingredients on here. I'd have to go check my 4-pack. It is sold as a 4-pack, at least by me.
Yep, same.
Yeah, no, last words are I would definitely have 1 to 2 to start a night or as a casual. Feels like while we're in this cooler weather, you can't really go wrong with it.
Definitely agree. I mean, it's not as cool where I am as it is where you are, but I think it hit 60s here today. But even still, I mean, it's very nice. I think if you're into trying a lot of different beers, the seasonal kind of winter Christmas ale is a good one. So we move on to our next beer.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't have a screen for this one, so I'm just going to leave it as the two hosts. But my beer is called Gingerbread 10W40. It's by Highwire, which I believe is out of North Carolina. Here's what the can looks like. I think it's a great looking can. I mean, it is very enticing. Like, you look at this and it's like, man, that's probably so good. It looks like it's just candy and it's so sweet. So it's an imperial stout, and it's brewed with ginger, cinnamon, vanilla, and lactose. And so this kind of leads me into the lactose portion, and I'll let you introduce yours in just a second. But for those of you who didn't know, lactose is one of the sugars that brewers' yeast cannot eat. So there are some like dextrin-based sugars that the yeast just do not like. For whatever reason. I mean, I don't know the specifics of it, but they'll be left over after all the fermentation's done. And what those do is they provide a lot of body. Sometimes they provide a little sweetness. They don't always have to, but it's going to be more full-bodied. It's going to be more sweet. And so if you have anything that's like a milk stout, this probably has lactose in it. It doesn't have actual milk in it, but it does have the lactose. So yeah, Robby, what do you have?
I have the Hardywood Bourbon Barrel GBS, the Bourbon Barrel Gingerbread Stout, and you have this kind of festive holiday bottle that like everybody's drinking.
Mm-hmm.
This is almost the one you think older dad or grandpa's drinking to me, but I like the short stout look of it. It definitely makes me think stout. A little southern. It's from a North Carolina brewery. And one thing that actually really caught my eye is this little design here. If you can see it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's a barrel
I like
with a
that.
gingerbread man chilling in it. I don't know about you, when I first see it, I think of a grenade. And that really intrigues me.
Yeah, I didn't think of a grenade, but I can definitely see it. But I definitely do agree with. I imagine a 70-year-old grandpa sitting in a rocking chair on his porch drinking that beer. I mean, that's the image that comes to mind. And I don't know if you agree with that, but now you're changing hats. I didn't know we were going with that. I don't have another hat to change into, so I feel kind of bad.
To change into the Beer Fest hat.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Is this one from Ebiff also?
I don't know. I don't remember that. I mean, you can check. You can check the app. If I've checked it in and it was on October or whatever in 2019, then it was. So I'm gonna show my glass here, like I always do. So the glass I have today for this one, this is a tasting glass from the Kennebec River Brewfest up in Augusta, Maine. I believe it was held in Mill Park in Augusta, if you know what that is. But I also added a handle to it because a lot of these tasting glasses do not have handles, but I have bought one for easier carrying, and it has a little handle on here, and I think it's pretty 4th of July looking one, but yeah, so it helps you carry it, so it can be a little bit more like a glass rather than having to hold it by the glass itself and warm the beer up or whatever, if you would like it a little more cold. So are you gonna pour yours, or you're just gonna drink it straight from the
That's a
thing?
cool little thing. I think I'm gonna do a little bit of a pour, but mostly drink it straight from. I'll just use my water glass. I got some Pinocchio.
I feel like I had a ton of those glasses when I was little.
Yeah, we never got rid of the Burger King
Oh,
ones.
you my lights like this? Okay. Funny that you say that though. I also did not turn on my front lighting. So if you couldn't see me as well as you could last week, that's why. But you can see the hat lights better if I don't have it on. That's why I had it off originally.
I lied, I poured the whole thing. The head did much better this time, Dan. So it actually, as we were thinking before about different beer types, I noticed this one took a long time for the head to
Hmm.
form as I was pouring it.
Yeah, this one didn't have much of a head. Um, Here's what it looks like.
It wants you to pour slowly into a stem glass for anyone who cares, at least mine. Like
Oh
it
man,
explicitly says the glass to use. I'm not used to that. That's cool.
yeah, mine does not. I mean, but you are used to pouring in specific glasses, e.g., Quack. So
Oh yeah, we love our quack. Quack glass.
yeah, now
Best drinking and driving law that I know of.
if you don't know what this glass is, it is from uh, Powell Quack. It is a specific type of beer where when you pour it, you don't pour it like I showed you how to pour it. You take it and you just pour. You literally just turn it upside down, right? And then it foams up all the way, but then you can see it sort of just immediately just turn back into beer as it goes back up. It's a very cool thing. If you've never done it, you really need to.
Yeah, you get to watch it change color. I think it starts off pouring like a normal one, but once you fill the bulb at the bottom is when you pour
Ah,
vertically. Where did I conjure that glass a few years ago? I think two. The distributor near me that I go to, where I got the beers I'm drinking today, Syosset Beverage and Soda. I'll dox myself a little, give them a shout out. They have them up in a corner, and I think it was 4 beers in the glass for $40.
yeah, I mean, beer as a hobby is not cheap. So
Oh wow, the head already disappeared. It lasted a couple minutes on the other beer.
yeah, like I had a little bit on this, but yeah, it's completely gone on mine too. Yeah, this one I can guess what yours kind of tastes like. This one though, it is very chocolatey. I think it has a really nice chocolatey undertone. There's no real coffee flavor, but it does have a bit of bitterness. I'm not sure what the IBUs are on this one, but there is a strong, and I mean a very strong, cinnamon and ginger flavor. I mean, which is to be expected, I guess, with a gingerbread beer. But yeah, I mean the ginger really shines through. It almost reminds me of like a hot toddy or something with like ginger on the top. I don't know. So Dan, you
Yeah,
say, do we want to hold on? I'll let you say that in a second. I'm gonna answer Dan real quick. He says, do we want to drink beer with head or with no head? Why don't all beers list IBUs on the label? I mean, they don't all list it because it's not legally required. I think a lot of the ones that are intending to be your hoppier beers that taste more bitter will list it because, I mean, if you want that hoppy beer, then you're going to want to know how bitter it is. This is not one of those beers where it's like, oh, I'm getting it for the bitterness. It's more of a novelty of the spices and the chocolatey kind of flavor. And I think it would definitely go good with some sort of holiday sweet. Anything with sugar would be good with it. And according, or not according, but like thinking about the head. I guess according to me, you do want head sometimes. And specifically, there are some styles where you want it to be pretty large. I think like more German styles are like that. You don't necessarily want a huge head on anything, but a half inch is usually fine. So just a little bit because it helps you to smell the beer one, because a lot of the aroma does come from the top. I don't know. I like the appeal that it has visually too. I think it just looks like a beer that you want to drink. If you don't have a head on the beer, it's kind of like, is that even a beer? I don't know. Because when you think of a beer, I think of the beer with the head at the top. So
Yeah, to piggyback off of that, I personally like the feel also just of the head hitting either against my upper lip or the inside of my mouth, that extra little creaminess on the first sip or two. So I like to start my beers that way. They wouldn't list IBUs because marketing reasons. As Nikolai mentioned, your higher IBU stuff is going to put it because hopheads are looking for that high IBU. Even though it's what, after 70, you don't actually tell the difference.
it's
Whereas
unclear, but I mean,
your lagers, why are they going to put 12 or 4 or whatever it is?
right.
Uh, Mine, I definitely taste whatever gives it that milk flavor. You mentioned earlier it's not going to be real milk. They don't want their beer to curdle. Um,
I can't
it
even
it
imagine what that would be like.
says vanilla beans. I'm not sure. There was a little vanilla I got, but then the cinnamon and the farm ginger, a little bit of honey, sure. Uh, it's definitely, to compare it to the other one, a little bit of the heavier spices, I guess you could say, like that ginger. Uh, to use the term I didn't understand, quote unquote, earthy. I think some of that is also going to come from the graininess of just a heavier malt beer.
Yep.
And mine does list IBUs for anyone interested. It is a 55.
And
Uh,
but before you go on, I will say for a lot of these
and I don't
darker
know, but
beers,
was yours pungent?
no, mine smells to me like it's almost just the spices with chocolate. Like I imagine getting a piece of chocolate and it having some sort of spices on it, and like that's literally what this smells like. But it's not super in your
Interesting.
face. But I did want to add about the IBU thing. For a lot of these darker beers, they do have a lot of IBUs in them to balance out some of the strong flavors, because a lot of these darker beers do have very strong like chocolate and coffee. Sometimes there are some other flavors in there too, but the bitterness does help to balance some of the alcohol out as well, because a lot of them are high alcohol. Like mine is an imperial stout that's 8%. Yours is a barrel aged stout, right? Um,
Barrel aged spiced milk stout, 11 and a half.
yeah, so the bitterness does help to balance that out a little bit, or else you would be tasting a lot of the alcohol rather than the beer.
Uh, I would like to correct myself real fast. Earlier, I said this is a North Carolina beer. That's your beer. I was remembering the wrong brewery. This is from Hardywood in Richmond, Virginia.
Ah, okay. So a question in the
Yeah, but
chat, real quick, is what's the highest IBU beer that you had? So mine is 130 IBUs. I had it in 2018. It is from Penobscot Bay Brewery in Winterport, Maine. It's called Mountain Man, and it's a collab between, let me look. It's between Penobscot Bay Brewery and Nocturnum Draft House. It was for their second anniversary, and it was named after Brandon Mountain, which was a double IPA that was brewed with Warrior Centennial and Simcoe hops. Now, like Robby was saying, at some point you don't really taste it. I don't know if it's 70. I've heard higher, like 100, Definitely 130 is past the point where you're really going to be noticing. I was looking through the list and I have 130, I have 122, but
Where do you see the IBU? Is that part of being an insider?
when I go to my beers, if I sort them, so if you go to your profile, then you click on see all beer, then
Oh,
then you go to sort, and I did IBU high to low.
yeah, my highest is 120 with the 120 minute, followed by a 119, the brew cocky from second shift.
So yeah, if you want to know some of my higher IBU beers, I've had Mountain Man, Hopper Dropper by Tumbledown, which Tumbledown is what I drank this beer out of. So that's where I got this glass. So that one was 122. Yeah, I've had the 120 minute at 120 IBUs. From Night Shift Brewing, I've had Honey Hop, which is 120 IBUs. I've had 111, a double rye IPA, and then Hop Stupid at 102. And I've had Waldo's has been 100 a couple times. It looks like 2016 it was 100 actually. So, Sam Adams Nitro IPA was also 100. Stone Ruination Double IPA was 100. Hop Centric was 100. I gave Hop Centric a 4, by the way. I think that was in your 5 list. So I've had quite a few hundred. I mean, there's probably 3, 4, or 5. I mean, I've had a number of 100 IBU beers. So what is your list like?
Hop Centric's a 4.5. I'm surprised Stone Ruination is only a 4.75. I feel like when I think of Stone, my favorite beer, it's the
Mm-hmm.
Ruination. Which also last week you guys were talking about beer logos you recognize immediately, brewery logos. Stone.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I don't know. It's just hard off the top of your head. I mean, I kind of put us both on the spot there because I didn't plan on asking that, but it just came to mind. So,
Stone's that gargoyle. And as soon as I saw it in the store, I was like, wow, how did we forget this one?
yeah.
It's yeah. So what are you thinking of your WD-40?
It's a WD-40. 10W40, sir. I'll have you know. Yeah, it tastes heavier to me, even though it's less alcohol. Um, it sort of sits there on your tongue a little bit longer. I think the aftertaste, which is the last part of mouthfeel, I don't know if we got to that whenever we were talking about it. I know we've been kind of scatterbrained, but the third piece is aftertaste, and this does leave a medium length kind of aftertaste. I think the way they break it up is kind of if it's less than 15 seconds, it's a short amount of time. If it's like 15 to I don't know 30 or a minute or something like that, it's medium, and then anything after that is like a long aftertaste. It's sort of like a medium aftertaste. You can definitely taste the chocolate still sitting on your tongue. You take a drink of it, and after the finish, it's like chocolate. And then you have a little bit of the cinnamon. You definitely have the ginger too. And so those three things just kind of sit there for a minute before they disappear. I mean, I like it. I think it's one of those that I could drink one of, maybe, but after that, like, there's no way you're drinking more. It is not a sessionable beer, as they're called.
Yeah, stouts tend not to be, especially imperial stouts, which is unfortunate because they're the best kind of stouts. Um, I'm finding mine to also be heavy. It's even a little syrupy, and I wonder if that comes down to being a maltier beer, right? Like the other one is, it describes itself as a blonde. I think it kind of also is in the realm of Belgian, and those are more wheat, not quite as grainy as what you might find in some of these malts.
Well, the malts are also just darker, right? And the darker malts are going to have probably more bitterness because they've been toasted longer, or maybe they're going to have a lot of the darker flavors that do have bitterness, like coffee or chocolate. Even if you think about chocolate, yes, there's a sweetness to it, but there's also a bitterness that you may or may not realize underneath.
Which keep mentioning the coffee taste. It's what the Maillard reaction. It's the same between roasting malts and roasting coffee beans, so it's a similar taste. Uh, Usually, imperial stouts are what I have to go to, skipping over regular stouts to enjoy them, because there's actually less coffee added due to the extra malt. This one does not say it's imperial, at least not on the bottle that I can find, but
Do you know
I'm
what?
tasting nothing like coffee.
Do you know what kind of barrels it was aged in? Does it say anywhere?
Bourbon.
Bourbon. Well, I mean, I will say they probably don't put so much malt in there, right? They but get enough to get the color. And here's the thing, right? It's not necessarily that they have, like for mine, for example, that they have all kinds of malts that are this color, right? They could have some dark malts, and we can go into this at some point on a later show because there's a ton of malts. I mean, I have a whole book back here about malts. But you have a little bit for color and a little bit for flavor, and then the rest could be a lighter color of malt, right? So it's not that they're all going to be the same color. So you could have a lot of those lighter malts and just some of the dark, and then you probably get a lot of the flavor from the bourbon barrels. That'd be my guess.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to verify, but bottle doesn't say, and I don't feel like Googling.
Does it taste like bourbon at all? Like, do you get a strong bourbon taste?
I don't get a strong bourbon taste, but the more I think about it, the more there's like a very subtle undercurrent of the stiffness in a whiskey bourbon kind of cutting the back. And I think that's controlling the aftertaste from going too much in the direction of any one flavor. The
Right.
aftertaste is very similar to the initial drink. It just lacks a little bit of the milkiness, which is probably for the best because the milkiness is great at first, but by the time you're done tasting it, you don't want to taste it anymore.
And for any Midwestern, Southerner, or Western uh, residing person who ever watches this, he's saying milkiness. Um,
Yeah, well, why don't you take your Mario and shove it?
yeah, you want to tell him what
Around
you?
these parts, it's Mario over here.
Uh, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I really like stouts that have kind of a milky, creamy, chocolatey flavor. Now the imperial ones, they're okay. And I think this one is a little bit better for me than some other of the Imperials because it does have a lot of that sweetness and it has some of the spice. It kind of detracts, or not, well, it kind of distracts, I guess, your mind from the Imperial Stout flavor itself, I guess. Um, which I think
I'm
is
gonna have to ask you for a quick minute while I speak to a man about a horse.
okay. Yeah, so like I said, this beer I would say is definitely not for everybody. It is one of those that is pretty heavy. It's dark, and I know that a lot of people don't necessarily like that kind of beer. Both the beers that we had today are definitely strong on the alcohol. This one it was 8%. Our first one was 9. I think Robbie's second one is 11 and a half. So I mean, they're ones that are to be enjoyed responsibly, for sure. And I mean, too many of these, and you're gonna be way over the top real quick. Um, I'm looking at my can, and it says that they put vanilla in here, and I don't know. The vanilla to me is sort of only there in the finish. So in the aftertaste, there's a bit of vanilla when you're looking for it, but it's definitely not one of those things that comes to mind immediately. Like if you told me to describe the beer without knowing what it said, the vanilla is not something that would come to mind, right? Which maybe that's just how vanilla is. I mean, vanilla is in a lot of stuff, especially baked goods, that you may not know that it's in there, but it is an essential ingredient.
Yeah, you bring up baked goods. I was gonna say often the vanilla in beer to me is like the vanilla in baked goods, where maybe you taste it a tiny bit, but usually it's just, oh, it's in there. It's probably helping marry all the ingredients.
Right.
And I wanted to touch real quick on what you said about the beer might not be for everyone. I think you also had a similar experience in your own way, at least, of, we mentioned not liking sours at first,
Mm-hmm.
me not liking regular stouts compared to imperial stouts. Uh, I jumped into beers. I hated IPAs. My first IPA was Stone IPA. It was awful. I hated it.
Did we lose you?
I had was Three Philosopher from Amagang, or along with Harrapin and Rarevos, and it was having those lighter styles that branched out flavor profiles
Right.
in every direction, and then being persistent, like with sours, sometimes with a little extra push from Kelly. That kind of got me into enjoying these different things. So a lot of it is also when you're exploring beer, it could just be the way things are made, the way things taste you're not used to, and you need to ease yourself into or just have it that much that you
Yeah.
learn to enjoy it instead of just taste the bad.
Right. And it's sort of like anything with food and drinks. You know, you may not like it first off just because there's something unfamiliar. You know, if you start eating something that's just it's not your norm, then you may originally think like this isn't really for me. But if you keep eating it, eventually you'll be like, well, it hasn't hurt me yet, so I guess it's fine. And you know, you may start to find some pieces that are good about it. I mean, I don't know. Other than the sour, I think that was the turning point with the beer for me. After that, I didn't really have any more experiences of I really just hate the style. I think that made me broaden what I liked and what I was willing to try, just so that I could try everything. I mean, that's why my Untapped is as large as it is today. Um, but other than that, I can't think of any beers that I wouldn't try at this point. I mean, I've had some bad ones, but I wouldn't change the fact that I tried them.
Yeah, and I think something to throw in there is can't really judge a beer until you've tasted it because there's 4 billion IPAs that all taste the same, but some of them you rate a 5 and some of them you rate a 2. If you're going based off ABZ, there are some delicious 4%ers, there are some awful 4%ers. If you like high ABV, Waldo's is a 12. We love that. You think Utopia is better at 28 or whatever the fuck it is. That's obscene. I thought it was pretty bad. So
Yeah, I mean,
kind of
it's the
you
novelty that
learn your
it's
breweries.
such a high ABV. And you know, it's funny that you bring that up too. Um, Normally, for beers, you're not going to get much higher than like 15 to 20% without training the yeast or getting a special strain. So I'm assuming Utopia has a special strain of yeast that can just produce a lot more alcohol. But I just did want to mention that because you kind of reminded me of it talking about it. Um, yeah, I don't remember what I rated Utopia, but it was so hard to drink, right? It's not something that I would ever spend whatever it costs, $250 or $200. I don't know how much it is, but way too much, that's for sure. Um,
It's a limited edition, expensive bottle. Um, Before it runs away from us, I've mentioned that my bourbon barrel Hardywood GBS here tastes a little bit milky a few times, and that there's probably not actual milk in there. You mentioned at the start something about lactose. Would that be the lactose giving me this flavor?
I mean, it's possible. I don't know what the ingredients are of it, but yeah, like this, for example, you can see maybe um, if it is. Hello. I don't know. You can sort of see it right there. It says contains lactose, right? So a lot of times breweries these days will tell you because if you are lactose intolerant, then it will be a problem for you, right? Because there's lactose in there, your body is not going to be able to break down the sugars because you have, a problem with lactase. I don't know if you don't produce enough or why people are lactose intolerant, but if you are lactose intolerant, you will not get along well with beers that have lactose in it. So yeah, it could be lactose. I mean, it also could be any one of like the dextrin family of sugars. I don't know what that is exactly, but those are unfermentable by breweries. So it could be different sugars. It doesn't necessarily have to be lactose. But lactose is just another example of something that breweries cannot eat. And so whenever it's left over, I will say the mouthfeel on this does definitely feel pretty full to me. It is very it's not hard to drink in terms of like actual drinking it like a liquid, but it seems harder than the beer that we did drink first. Um,
Yeah, it's definitely heavier.
and I want to, well, yours for sure, especially being bourbon barrel aged. One thing that this did remind me of was something that's the real degree of fermentation, which is a percentage measure of how much sugar was actually eaten by the yeast. And so, if there is a lower percentage, so say you have like 40% or more of the sugars that are left, you're going to get something that's very much a heavier beer. It's going to be, it's going to feel like it's a little bit harder to drink, a little bit fuller probably. If you have something that, you're only leaving 20% of the sugars, it's going to be less full bodied. So that's something that's interesting. And it was kind of, I was going down that vein in terms of ABV that led me into including mouthfeel in this episode because they're pretty closely linked, right? Because the more sugar you have, the more alcoholic it probably will be. And also, the more sugar that you have, but the more sugar that you leave, the bigger the body is going to be. And this is a strategy that some brewers will use. So earlier I said you can get the same percentage ABV but different mouthfeels because it has a higher original gravity, right? So if you have a pretty high original gravity and a pretty high final gravity compared to something that's the same ABV, they can be two completely different mouthfeels, one really heavy, one really light, for that reason, because there's more left over in the one with a higher final gravity.
So what you're saying is, while we got taught all you really need is water, yeast, and a can-do attitude, it's all about the sugar.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely all about the sugar if you want to make beer. I mean, if you don't want to make beer, then or any fermented beverage, right? This goes for anything that's fermented. Then you have to have sugar. Otherwise, the yeast has nothing to eat, and there's nothing that's producing the alcohol in there. I mean, I don't know if there are other ways to produce alcohol in general. I don't know if they're safe, effective, legal. I have no idea. So I do know that yeast is one way, and it's
There's that one that starts with a G, right? Am I going crazy? It's not grout, but it's a similar word.
oh, Gruit.
That grew it.
Are you?
Herbs from before hops.
Yeah, I mean, it's typically regarded as like a older drink, I think, and but I don't think it has anything to do with the yeast and the sugars. I mean, I think the difference is, like you say, like herbs and things like that. Because I mean, there could be naturally occurring yeast. I think that's how beer was discovered, right? There was yeast in the air and around the area of something that was high in sugar, and it turned into beer because the natural yeast ate the sugar and produced alcohol.
Yeah, so there's actually a theory among historians. I don't know how popular it is, I just know it exists. Part of the reason for civilization is alcohol. And it basically boils down to, we'd leave leftovers or something in a log by mistake. And then over the course of the next year, when we came back as hunter gatherers that were migrating around, we'd come back to that same place, find liquid there, drink it, and go, "Ooh, this is tasty. I feel good," and realize how it was getting made over the course of several years. And so the ability to have that on demand was a reason to settle down because we liked it.
Well, and especially in the older days, beer was confirmed cleaner than water a lot of times because of the alcohol. So
Oh, this is way before that.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, but yeah, I don't know that theory necessarily, but I mean, it sounds plausible. Um, I don't know what it would feel like to be a hunter gatherer who leaves some sort of fruit slushy in the bottom of a log and comes back and puts it in your mouth and tries it. That sounds kind of sus to me, but you know, I appreciate, I guess, whoever did that in the past. As they
I
say,
just
this
sent you a
one's for
link that I
you.
have not actually read.
What'd you send it on Twitch?
Apparently, there's a comma in there, so it doesn't like it. It's really silly. Uh, but yeah, it's just a fun thing to think about, like how much we think about alcohol in our culture as the fun thing to do or a way to hide your other feelings. But we don't really think of it in the grander scheme of things of why is alcohol a thing we bother with in the first place. And exploring that we found alcohol and said, wow, we enjoy this, how it makes us feel, and the potential evolutions that came from it and inventions and stuff. That's not really something we ever stop to consider.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much I've even stopped to consider it. I mean, I think you could do probably an entire episode on the origins of beer, even further back than what you normally think of as, oh well, they were brewing beer because it was safer than water.
Yeah, that is still kind of nuts to me. I wanted to bring up a memory. We were talking about brewing beer before, and I know we're gonna end shortly because it's been over an hour.
Mm-hmm.
But do you remember senior year when we were gonna brew beer?
I do recall that. Yes.
We never did brew it, but we got the entire beer making setup from my brother. All we need to do is go get our own hops and yeast and stuff. But we had the actual physical pieces to store it all in, the various tubing and piping and the quote unquote keg. I
Yep.
can't think of the real word right now.
Like a carboy maybe or something.
And we had to clean that. And boy, oh boy, was that something to clean.
Yeah, I mean,
You ever
I've brewed beer since then. Um,
have you ever opened something and smelled it and gone, wow, I'm gonna vomit? Then that smell was lingering 7 days later and still made you go, wow, I'm gonna vomit. Because
uh,
that's what we cleaned.
I mean,
Dan might
probably.
remember. Dan helped.
Yeah, I don't think I helped at all because I mean, I I wasn't like living in your same apartment, but yeah, I mean,
I think that was me, Dan, and Dennis.
yeah, I mean, I recall that you guys wanted to do that, and it is confirmed here by Daniel that it smelled awful, and he says he unfortunately remembers. Um, yeah, well, I
Really, it
mean,
was just a long brewing sour beer bacteria.
what did he actually brew sour beer in there?
I sincerely hope not. Isn't sour really hard to do unless you know what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, sours, you're going to have a lot of interaction among the yeast strains, the bacteria strains. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it. And if you're brewing that, especially if you're a commercial brewery and you're brewing that, you have to make very sure that you're not accidentally infecting your other beers, right? Because if you have lactobacillus in one of your areas, right, and that gets in to your American Pale Ale or your Miller High Life area or something, like it's gonna ruin it, right? Like there's no coming back. You're gonna have to just completely redo the batch. One thing that comes to mind though when I think about that is I remember on the sour day in beer school they told us kind of how like stuff forms, like solids form, and that to me, like I know there are like 5 steps in the beer that he was talking about. Just think about that where the yeast eats up some of the stuff, and then you have the lactobacillus go in, and it makes some solids or something, and then another step is those solids are being like eaten up by whatever else, and it's interesting, but it's also at the same time like I don't want any solids in my beer. Like I don't want to think about that because it just kind of grosses me out.
The thing I always remember that they told us is the reason a lot of people, including us, think that sours taste like vomit until they get used to it is that lactobacillus is one of those things found in your gastrointestinal system. So, if you're a person who has thrown up before, whether it's from being sick, being a person for several years, or from drinking too much, you've tasted it on its way out. So, your body recognizes that taste on the way in, and it takes a little getting used to finding the other flavors.
Right, and I think also part of it is the acidity is very high, right? So your intestinal juice or whatever is very highly acidic, whereas your normal beer is not going to be super acidic. I think it's brewed at like 5.5 ish. Don't quote me on it, but I think it's something like that. But in some of these beers that are sours, I'm assuming they are slightly more acidic than that, especially the ones that have that vinegary taste. I don't know what the pH of. What's the acid in vinegar?
I don't know, less than 7.
No. Like, what's the name of it? And there's something I don't know what it is. I forget.
Oh, I'm
But
gonna know that even less than my pH scale. You're the one who went for a Cicerone.
I mean, I haven't yet. But maybe one day. Maybe if we talk enough, I'll retain enough of this information that I'll be able to go and do it. So.
Uh, we just, thinking out loud here and definitely not putting you under the pressure of all of your viewers. When we go back to doing beer fests, are you gonna try and vlog them?
I actually thought about that. I mean, I would definitely be open to it. I know that there are some pretty nice like streaming backpacks that you can get, so it's something I'll look into for sure. I think it'd be fun as long as the beer fest allows it. I don't know if they allow it or not, but I would be open to it. I think people would enjoy that, to see a IRL view, especially somewhere where we're not going to get like messed with on the street because it's at an event. I think it's pretty safe to go in and stream it.
I was also thinking, if you remember, you asked us a few weeks ago what we thought DWBH stands for. And my first thought was drinking with both hands. And I know it's don't worry, beer happy. Don't worry, bore happy. Uh, but I was thinking there could be an episode once a month, every other month, of drinking with both hands. And ideas I had for what it could mean are maybe you do a cocktail or you try some extra beer. And the cocktail being you go through making it and the way it works. Or even just like a fun stream that, people who listen to it can join in on playing drinking games and just talking and shooting the shit.
Yeah, I mean,
But definitely getting drunk.
one thing that we have to be careful of for sure is we don't want to promote any bad behaviors. We want to promote responsible drinking, especially I think with an audience that could be capable or incapable of managing that on
That's why I'm a
their
guest and
own.
you're a host.
Yeah, like I don't know. I mean, we can talk about it offline, but yeah, I mean, there are a ton of ideas that I have for shows moving forward, including things like game shows. I think having a game show would be fun. I'll tell you offline the things I've had. I don't want to spill it yet, but I will say there's been a lot of panel ideas, a lot of game show ideas, and just stuff like that. I think it would be really fun to do. So I guess in closing, I'm gonna rate the beer. So you gonna rate your
Yeah, we
beer?
didn't do that yet.
Um,
Oh no, I finished it all so long ago. I forgot what it tastes like.
Robbie. Oh my. Yeah, I still have a little bit in my glass here, but Untapped says it's 20 IBUs. Well, yeah, like I said, I didn't feel like it was super bitter. Um, this one I think I like a little bit less than the one before. I'm gonna go with a. I'm gonna go with a 3.6. I think it is good. It's not the best thing I've ever had. I would drink it again, but I'm not gonna go out and look for it every season or every winter. I don't think.
Yeah, I think on a similar note, 99 bottles of beer on the wall. What?
I
Oh,
think
15 check-ins with the serving style of bottle. Okay. Uh, Yeah, the on a similar note, I think the heavier mouthfeel actually brought it down a little bit for me. I gave this one a 4 as opposed to the previous 4.25.
Hmm.
Um, and that you said you're not going to look for it. I would look for this one a little less, and also following that mouthfeel, it would be harder to drink the second one. The other one was you could have one or two on a nice winter day. This is more of a your first one with or after dinner when you're going to relax, not when you're going to drink more. Or even as I'm sitting down and watching a movie and I'm just having one beer during the movie. It's like pretty a solitary beer, going to be hard to have a second, and it's going to take a lot of willpower to truck through and have more if you are planning on being on the less responsible side.
Well, hopefully you're not. But I will say, yeah, I understand what you're saying here. It's one of those things where you drink it and it's like, I like the flavor. It's pretty good. I'm glad I tried it. I would drink it again, but it's hard to drink two for sure because your mouth is kind of like, it's really heavy on me. Like it's kind of old by now. So this one's a 4 for you then?
I gave it a 4. I mean, the flavors were good. I enjoyed it. And I can't say I'm not going to drink 3 of them in a night as a reason to rate it lower. I think saying, oh, I could drink this all day despite being 11.5% is a reason to rate it higher.
Right.
But I can't let the heaviness degrade from the quality that I did taste and did enjoy. I don't think that would be a fair way to judge the beer.
Okay. I mean, I think it's definitely a valid way to rate it. You have anything else to add? If not, I mean, I'll take us out of here.
No, I think I've said my piece and then some. You've been
Okay.
very gracious.
But yeah, I mean, I thank you for coming on. I mean, as always, it's great to talk to you. I think we always have good conversations whenever beer is involved. And yeah, hopefully in the future there's a lot more content with you in it. Look, I think you are going to be a crowd favorite. I think your personality is one that is just designed for people to like you. They're like, he's the fun guy who I want to see do X, Y, and Z. Like I feel like you're the kind of person who, if we do a maybe like a Hot Ones inspired episode, like they want to see you burning your mouth with the hottest hot sauce in the world while also drinking beer. What do you think?
So, yes, one, 100% would. Two, I enjoy the very bold claim and complimentary things that you just said about me without having any feedback to whether or not they would be true.
Well, look, accept it as reality. This is my channel, so whatever I say goes, and that's what I said. So, I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. Yeah, I mean, TR, I guess. But again, yeah, I thank you for being here. Is there anything you want to plug? I know we didn't have anything at the beginning. If not, is that a no?
No, I got no socials. I guess I'll just mention again we had the Everything Nice from the Amagang Brewery and the GBS or the Gingerbread Stout from the Hardywood Bourbon Barrel. That's Hardywood Park Craft Brewery in Richmond.
Yeah, and then mine was the gingerbread 10W40 from Highwire. Um, yeah, so I guess I'll take us out of here. The next show, I'm not exactly sure the date. It'll be in Discord. So if you're in chat, then you can just type exclamation Discord and get the link if you want to join. There'll be an event whenever it's scheduled. I do think I know the next host. We're not confirmed on the date and we're not confirmed on his availability, but I think it'll be a good one. And I would imagine it would be somewhere around the week after Christmas, maybe 2 weeks after Christmas. So if you're wanting more content on this channel, I am planning on putting together some of the offline videos. I think in the meantime, that way there's something coming out even though there's not a show. So be on the lookout for that as well. What was something funny there, Robby? No.
My internet has been pooping out for the last
Okay.
minute and a half of you speaking.
I thought you were laughing at me. I was like, I don't know what I said that was so funny, but all right. with that, I thank you everybody for joining us today from wherever you are, whatever time zone you're in. I appreciate it. And Robby, if you wanna finish this for me, you know what we say at the end here. Just don't worry.
Oh yeah, beer happy.
You're happy. All right. Thank you guys.